For years, Allyson built her life and work as a psychic, helping people find clarity, direction, and meaning through intuitive insights. But after a decade of personal challenges, a life-altering diagnosis, and an experience she can only describe as encountering Jesus, she walked away from that identity and rebuilt her life through a completely different lens. Today, we're talking about that journey, what she experienced, what changed, and how she now understands everything she once believed about intuition, spirituality, and faith. Allyson, welcome to Meant to Be Heard.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. I am such a fangirl of you. I've been so excited to have this conversation. Seriously, I want to update the listeners a little bit because we go way back, and I don't even know if you remember me.
Of course I do.
You actually do?
Yes, I remember you, your sister, your family. Yes.
Okay, that is wild because you've sat across from hundreds, thousands of people in your span of your career. So I wouldn't have put it past you at all if you didn't know who I was. But yeah, it's crazy that you have had such an impact on me and my spiritual journey over the years. And so just for the listeners really quick, we got connected through a friend. It was like a word of mouth thing. Somebody was like, oh my gosh, I had this amazing psychic reading from Allyson. You have to go see her. I think it was my friend Robin or my friend Steph. And then I came to see you, my sister, my dad, my mom, my friends. And I think that that's such a testament to a strong psychic or medium, is that when you are on point and you are accurate and you're changing people's lives, people talk, right? And they share it with their friends. And so it's this probably organic kind of growth in your business. And I remember seeing it from the outside, oh, she's charging more. It's harder to get in. She must be expanding. She must be growing. It is so cool. And then from the outside, seeing you transitioning from doing psychic readings to healing sessions and helping teach people how to harness their own spiritual gifts. And I know my mom did one of your courses and my sister did a healing session with you actually quite recently. And then now, your new website and your new courses, and there seems to be another transformation. So I'm just so excited to talk to you about your background, your lore, get into it all, because I've been cheering from the sidelines. And I also just want to say, you are the real deal. You have a gift. You have had a gift for over 10 years is when I think we originally got connected in the early 2010s.
Yeah.
And so you are the real deal. So I'm so excited to get into all of it with you today. And one more thing that I will say too, anybody listening, if you haven't listened to episode 2, where I interview my sister, Maddie, who had a spontaneous spiritual awakening in 2022, she felt guided to your website. She goes to your website and she was like, oh, am I supposed to have a reading? Something like that. But she saw that you had this Meet Your Spirit Guide meditation. And so she bought it, she did it. And that was the catalyst. It kicked her off to having this full-blown spiritual awakening. And she mentions it in the podcast episode. So this is that Allyson that we were talking about. And I just feel like you've just been this pillar in my life of helping with the curiosity and the excitement in this world. And it's almost like you were a little breadcrumb that the universe was placing on my path to keep following and keep going down this path. So first of all, thank you for having such an impact on my life. And thank you for coming on the podcast. Like I said, I'm a fangirl and I'm geeking out right now getting to talk to you.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. It's so great to reconnect with you and to be here. I'm so excited to see where your journey has taken you and your sister. And yeah, those are such kind words and they mean a lot to me.
Allyson, I'm so curious. How did you get into all of this? Where does your spiritual story begin? Are you somebody who was born with these sensitive abilities? When did you come into your gifts?
So looking back now, yes, I've always been deeply empathic, highly sensitive, and there's certain things that I would experience as a kid that I didn't at the time really know what they were, if they were connected to that. But for instance, you hear a lot of people talk about it. I've heard it on your podcast too, where I would be sleeping and then I would wake up and have a sensation that I'm falling back into my body, things like that. So there were experiences like that. there was nothing very supernatural, I didn't like see spirits or anything like that. I was just always just highly attuned to the emotions of others and very sensitive to noise, to crowds. I grew up in a family, there's 4 kids, and it would get loud, right? And so there was times that I remember I'd be in the kitchen and I would just be so overstimulated, and I'd go stomping down the hall and slam my door. And my parents were like, "What is your problem?" But it's because I could not handle it. I could not handle the noise, and I needed that quiet, but I didn't know how to get it at such a young age. But it wasn't truly until, like, I was always aware of the sensitivity and the empathic nature, but it wasn't until my awakening that I really understood myself.
And so when did that awakening happen for you?
My awakening came through crisis, as they tend to do. I got married young. I got married when I was 23, and I was naive. I was, just not ready for marriage, but it was encouraged. And I just kind of grew up. I remember my dad saying to me, like, "That's what you do. You grow up, you get married, you make a baby." And I think at the time I was really looking to get out, but I didn't know how to do it, and just like, out of the house and become my own person. So very soon after I got married, things went downhill pretty quickly. There just wasn't that kindness that there was when I met him. I just didn't feel safe or loved, honestly. And then I had this intuition, a really strong intuition that, like, something's off, something's not right here. And I couldn't get answers to it, but it was growing more and more uncomfortable as time went on. And so one night I felt so, again, like, not loved, not safe, and uncertain. I got down on my knees beside my bed and I just prayed for help to God. And I said, "Dear God, just please help me. Like, I don't know what to do." I felt stuck. I felt scared. And I just said, "Whatever it is you need from me, I will do it. Just tell me what. Like, I need help. Please help me." And that day I had happened to buy this little, like, it was a little moonstone crystal. And I put it on my headboard before I went to sleep. And the next morning, I woke up far earlier than I usually do, and the door is usually closed. But the first thing I notice is that the door is open a crack with the light shining in. And the first thing I see is that moonstone crystal sitting in the crack of light. How it got across the entire room, I don't know. But on instinct, I just jumped out of bed, picked up the crystal, flew down the stairs, and I'm standing in the kitchen, and I hear this voice say, "Check his phone." And so I wasn't the kind of, woman that would do that, but I picked up his phone, and sure enough, there was the confirmation and the validation that I'd been seeking.
When you say that, was it infidelity? Is that what you found in his phone?
Yes, and he would only admit to, like, emotional cheating, which who knows, maybe it was, but regardless, I had an intuition that I'd confronted him about, and it was denial, denial, denial for a long time. So
Okay. Yep. Yep.
yeah, I was committed to our vows still, right? And I said to him, like, "I want to go to marriage counseling. I want to work this out." He didn't want to go, but I made him go for a couple sessions at least. So we had about 2 sessions, and then some things were coming to light that he didn't want to look at, like maybe diagnoses and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
he stopped going after 2 sessions, and I'm sitting there at the marriage counselor at the 3rd session. She's looking at me like, "Takes 2, right?" And so the writing was on the wall, and we did end up getting divorced. And at the time, it was really scary and painful, and at the time felt like the worst thing that could ever happen, right?
And how old were you? How long had you been married?
2 years.
2
2
years. And did
years.
you have children?
No.
Okay.
No, we didn't.
One other question, because I'm so curious, and it's really fascinating because I had another guest kind of have the same thing where she just has this moment with God and she just surrenders and asks for help, which sparked her spontaneous spiritual experiences. So I want to know, what was your experience growing up? Did you grow up in a religious family? Did you grow up in a spiritual family? Or were you just kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing, but like, I'm just going to pray because I don't know what else to do?
That's a great question. No, I didn't have a spiritual foundation. I didn't grow up in a religious family. It's something that I wish I had had. I think just knowing who I am today, I really would have benefited from that. And that's why now, being a mom, I feel so great that I can give that to my daughter. But no, we really didn't. I mean, the closest I had to anything spiritual was just, I remember my dad at a certain age saying, well, I guess I should teach you guys the Lord's Prayer. And, we memorized it, not even knowing why or what it really meant. And then eventually we kind of just stopped saying it, but that was about it,
You have this prayer you see in the morning, and you actually hear a voice like outside of you say, check the phone.
So that's an important distinction that I think is hard to make for a lot of people. It's like, well, how does that voice come forward? How do you hear it? And it wasn't some sort of disembodied voice outside of me, but clearly that it's not my voice, but in my head. Like I can hear it in my head, but I'm aware that it's not mine.
Did it feel telepathic?
I guess. I mean,
Different from intuition?
yes, it did feel different from intuition in that it wasn't me feeling it or sensing it or trying to connect with it. It just showed up and it was like, oh, okay, I better pay
Hmm.
attention to this and act on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was that like the first time that you had ever experienced a message come in like that?
Yes, it was the first time I'd experienced that, but I did go on to experience it more in the future. Yeah.
Right. So you try, and I think that that's really cool. It's not like when you discovered these things on his phone that was your out and you're like, see ya. You actually tried to make it work. Because did part of you think, oh, this is the reason why I'm feeling off, and if we can solve it, then maybe I can be happy with you and we can be happy together?
Yeah, and I think, before you really do have your journey of self-discovery and you know who you are and what you want, there's just for me in my mind, like that was it. That was going to be my life. And so I took my vows serious and I wanted it to work because of that. But there was also just, well, if not this, what? You know?
Right.
So
And you're 25. That's so young. I just feel like when I look at myself at 25, I'm like, you were a baby, you were a child.
totally.
So you get a divorce at 25. Is that what kicks off your awakening story?
Yes, definitely. So I go from feeling that kind of pain and confusion and whatnot into just all of a sudden being really drawn to spirituality and really curious about it. Like we got divorced in 2006, just for a timeline. And
Hmm.
then in 2007, I just started taking like all these courses and workshops that interested me. And it really just kickstarted my journey of self discovery. And just for a solid 3 years, it was just like, okay, learning, learning, learning. And it felt so great. I mean, I loved it. It resonated with me immediately. And I had so many people saying like, did you know that you're a healer? Did you know how intuitive you are? Do you know you're good at this? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I'm learning or figuring that out. But I knew right away, like there was a passion there and a sense of this feels right. And I kept learning that for about 3 years. And then in 2010, I launched Awaken Enchantment out of a desire to support others and just share the passion that I was feeling for healing in that work.
So when you started your journey, it wasn't necessarily with the goal of, oh, I want to do this professionally or I want to start this business. It was more for your own journey. But then as you got into it, and it sounds like people were encouraging you, and you must have also been getting that personal validation as well during that time that like, oh, I'm receiving messages or I can help people. Like, explain to us that journey of like how you came into your psychic gifts.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was never something I would have pursued professionally, or I never had an aim of like, this is what I'm going to do. It definitely did feel like a calling, to be honest. It felt like I kept getting just so many repetitive signs and messages, and I liked it. I mean, that's how it began, was just feeling connected to something, passionate about something. And then the business was born out of a desire to go, I've experienced how much this has changed my life, and I want to help others, if that can
Hmm.
change their life. When you go through that period of crisis or darkness, and then you come out the other side of it and you see the light in the dark, then it's kind of hard not to want to reach out to others and say, hey, like, trust me, you'll get through this and your life will be the better for it. You'll be the better for it.
Right. And it gives what you've gone through meaning too, right? That you're like, oh, maybe this is why I had to go through it so that I could overcome it and then I could help others and I could teach others. It's like making your mess your message.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I like how you put that. There's definitely, I think that's what God's purpose is in terms of how he uses us in that way, or maybe that's not the right word, but we go through shadows and challenging times to learn from them and then take that light, and we can relate to others more. We can support others who are going to go through what we've been through. And I think we are meant to do that.
Mm-hmm. By the time we connected, and I can't remember what year it was, if it was 2012, 2013, 2014,
Yeah.
somewhere along the way. So at that point, you had your business for a few years. Was it something that you started on the side and then it grew and then you transitioned to doing it full time? Or like walk us through the beginning of your business journey.
Yeah, exactly. It really started out as a hobby and a passion, right? And then it just kept growing and growing. And within a time frame of 2 years, then I was like, okay, I can just do this full time, which felt really great. And, it's what has sustained me and been my work ever since, 15 years. So
Mm-hmm. It's so cool. So at the beginning, were you just offering psychic readings primarily?
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, my business has gone through many different evolutions over the years. And it did start out doing psychic readings with oracle cards, angel cards. And then it moved into more of an energy healing, really rooted in like shamanic energy, nature spirits, earth energies. Then it moved into inner child healing, which will always, I think, be my favorite. I love inner child work. And then ancestral healing, and then eventually very spirit-led remote healing sessions. And each was progressive and really representative of where I was at that time.
Right. That makes
Yeah.
sense. I had a really cool story because it stuck out with me throughout the years, and I wanted to share it with you because I know you wouldn't
Please.
remember it. But I remember coming to you in around 2014. And like, did a lot of people come to you for love? Because I remember I was like, I just want to know about my love life. Like, I'm 24. I just got back from this 6-month trip and I want a boyfriend. So I come to see you, Allyson. And you're like, oh, yeah, there's a guy coming in. He's 4 to 5 years older than you. He's kind of creative, like maybe plays guitar sometimes. You're like, he wears glass. He's got a cool style. He wears like glasses sometimes. And you're like, I'm seeing numbers around his head. Like, I don't know. He's really good at math. Like maybe he's in finance or something. And you're like, you said the name Ryan. You're like, I'm getting the name Ryan. And then you're like, it's something about a brother, like someone's brother. I don't think it's your inner circle, but it's something connected to your outer circle, something about a brother. So I'm like, okay, these are very specific details.
Yeah.
So a few weeks later, I go for drinks with 2 girls that I went to junior high with. And we used to be besties in junior high. It's now after university, and it's kind of one of those, hey, let's get together, let's reconnect and catch up. So we're hanging out. At the end of drinks, one of the girls goes, hey, my brother's having an ugly Christmas sweater party. You should come. And in my mind, I'm like, ding, 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 brother. Okay. And so I'm like, yes, I'm coming to the party. So then I go and I'm like racking my brain of what do I know about him? Because her and I were like besties in junior high. I went to their house. I knew she had 2 older brothers. So I'm trying to think, okay, what do I know about her brothers? And I was like, I remember seeing a guitar in their basement. So I feel like he plays guitar, 4 to 5 years older. That makes sense. So I'm creeping him on everything, like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, looking at all his stuff. And he's like private on everything, but I can see on his LinkedIn, he's wearing glasses. So I'm like, wearing the glasses sometimes. He works in finance, in oil and gas. So I'm like, there's the finance thing. And it was like, check, 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 check. The brother. Oh, it makes sense. Not my immediate circle, but the outer circle. And his middle name is Ryan.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I'm going
That's funny.
into this party being like, I'm going to meet my soulmate because Allyson told me about this guy and now I'm going to his house and his party. So I go to the party and I'm like trying to talk to him, trying to flirt with him. He will not give me the time of day. He'll hardly look at me, let alone ask me anything, talk to me. I'm like trying so hard. I remember leaving that night going like, he checked all the boxes. I'm so confused. I thought it was him. So the next morning, I get a text from him. He got my number from his sister and he asks me out. And
Oh my
then
gosh.
long story short, we go out, we date for 2.5 years. We live together and he wasn't my forever person soulmate, but he was definitely a soulmate in this lifetime, a very important relationship where I grew a lot at that time of my life. So anyways, you nailed that.
That's funny. Oh my gosh.
And I want to know, what do you make of that? What is that coming in, like those messages and how they came into you like that? How do you explain that?
It all just boils down to trust at the heart of it, honestly. Intuition is trust. When I felt like I could be there for a client in the best way and that they would receive the most is when I was in surrender. It always comes back to surrender and trust and having a pure intention, right? So it was really just showing up and saying to God, who at the time I'd refer to as spirit, right? But just, I'm here. Whatever this person needs, bring it through me. My intention is to be of service. And then just getting out of that ego, out of that human mind so that you can just be quiet, listen, and share from whatever comes through.
And so are you seeing visuals of things? Are you hearing it? Is it a knowing? How do these messages come to you, or how did they come to you?
For me, it was always a mix of all the clairs. Like I could hear, see, feel, and know. But my strongest is definitely feeling.
Okay. And so you're doing these psychic readings, and then at some point you transition your business to be doing more of like healing sessions and teaching people. Was there a specific moment or an experience that made you want to shift?
Yeah, that is a good question because the reason I stopped doing psychic readings was I could see how difficult it was. Okay, let me put it this way, how easy it was for people to want to give their power away. And even if I was saying, I don't have your answers, you have your answers, right? I'm just mirroring or reflecting back to you things. And because of my intuition, bringing down some things that might, like you said, breadcrumbs is a great metaphor and helping kind of maybe help you along that path. But I just felt like it was disempowering for a lot of people. And that's when I decided I wanted to move more into the healing aspect of it so that there wasn't that sense of, tell me what to do, give me my answers.
Yeah. Do you feel like people kind of got addicted to that, like knowing the next thing that was going to happen in their life instead of living it and creating it?
Yeah, you need such discernment. I mean, it can be very easy, right, for someone to not connect on their own and build their own intuition versus just relying on someone else's.
Hmm.
And that's not a healthy place to be.
Right. I mean, you have also been in the industry for so long. I feel like you've probably seen even just the public interest and it becoming more mainstream and people seeking out even how to do this. Like I just remember getting that reading at the time, and the thought didn't even enter my mind that I would be able to do that myself at all.
Yes.
I was like, you must be born with this gift and you're gifted and you're God's chosen one. And that's why you can tell me this thing. Like, that's what I thought at the time, that,
Yeah.
it wasn't as widely spoken about and talked about. Do you feel that, like the
Oh,
transition from where things were when you started to now?
100%. I mean, when I started, it was not something that was understood, openly talked about. It was very kind of niche, and it has definitely just become so mainstream, which I think is wonderful, right? That everyone is, wanting to connect with their intuition, and spirituality is this just open, expected conversation now, where people, before you get that look of like, you do what? And no one understood it.
Right. So
Yeah.
interesting. So on your website, you say from 2015 to 2025, you walked through a season that felt like a wilderness. So what was going on through that 10-year period?
So as I say, there was some beautiful moments in that too, right? I mean, getting married, the birth of my daughter, like some wonderful things that happened. But overall, I can look back and see that that decade was really what I refer to in my new framework as disenchantment, and it's really where you are being like spiritually tested, if you will, and where you're brought to really difficult situations to have that spiritual formation and to strengthen your faith. For me, it was a perfect storm, honestly. I got diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy in January 2023. And at the same time that I'm going through this just year of physical and emotional pain, my parents are going through a bitter divorce after 41 years of being married. And then we've also got financial struggles because we're trying to prepare for when our daughter goes into kindergarten and getting settled before that. And it was just like one of those situations where when it rains, it pours. And there wasn't a lot of support because my family was going through their own stuff and doesn't really understand boundaries. I was just being like pulled, pulled, pulled. And anyone with epilepsy will know that anti-epileptic medication, the main symptom of that is fatigue, right? And so here I am with a toddler and getting hit with this unexpected diagnosis, and I'm just like in extreme exhaustion. I mean, I was going to bed at the same time as her because I couldn't stay up. And I mean, there's so many symptoms, but the worst ones for me were like severe full body aches, severe back pain, constant nausea, headaches. And I struggled with word retrieval. I couldn't have this conversation that we're having now back then.
So did that completely put your business on pause then, I would assume?
I would have liked that, honestly, but because life doesn't come with a pause button, I still did have to work. And of course, I minimized it. And like, I would never show up and do something if I didn't feel like I could. So, yes, it was minimized, but I did still need to show up. And at the time, we were living in a place that wasn't comfortable, it wasn't quiet. So, that was a struggle too. And then with my daughter being in preschool, anybody knows with preschooler, they're bringing home every bug known to man. And then I would get that bug. So because my immune system was down and I have asthma, my asthma flared up. And then I've got like respiratory infection after respiratory infection. I mean, it was just everything all at once. And yeah, and I still had to work. And surprisingly, I mean, I will admit there was a level of resentment at times, having to show up and hold space for others when I didn't feel like I had it. But I
Right.
do understand why that happened the way it did and why God had that play out that way. And
During that time when you're struggling that way, did you ever feel this, if I'm the healer, how come I'm struggling? Did you ever put that pressure on yourself or feel that pressure of like being in this world and needing to have it all figured out?
Yeah, that's a good question. There was always a part of me that believes, so I always felt that it was a bit arrogant personally to think, oh, healing and to define that ourselves, which I saw a lot of clients do over the years, was to be free of absolutely anything and everything and just be perfectly healthy. So I didn't carry that belief because I feel like whatever comes to us is coming to us with a purpose. But yes, I could experience that expectation from other people. So I did feel judgment around that, but I myself didn't carry that.
That's beautiful
Yeah,
that you didn't. That's such an
thank you.
interesting thing. There's a purpose to the challenge that you're going through, and the healer or the mystic or the guru, like they also are here to evolve and grow and level up. And the best way to do that is through challenges.
Yes.
Unfortunately. So I love that you recognize that and knew that within yourself. And it's a good reminder for all of us. Like, it doesn't matter how evolved you feel like you are, there's always that next level, that next evolution. And we're going to be challenged multiple times throughout our lifetime. So it's a good reminder to take that pressure off, even if you're getting it placed on you. And I think I just asked because I sometimes feel that pressure as somebody who speaks about this world and talks about it and shares different spiritual beliefs. I find there's been moments in my life where I feel like I have to have it all figured out and I have to be this
Yeah.
perfect person in order to share these things. Otherwise, I'm a hypocrite. But
No.
then I
Oh,
kind of fight back and I'm like, but I'm a human too. Like, it's not a
yeah.
linear journey either.
Yeah. We're all just doing our best. And, I think anybody who tells you they've got it all figured out, run the other way.
Okay.
I mean, I've always believed that because the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know, you know? So
Right.
there's such beauty in just admitting that and sitting in that humility and knowing that, okay, I mean, it was my faith that carried me through that experience and that diagnosis because it was because of my faith that I could move very quickly into surrender and acceptance because I
Okay.
had that belief. I said to God, okay, but after I went through the human emotions of shock and grief and confusion and all of those, then I remember I was standing in the kitchen one day and I just said, okay, this has come to me for a reason. I know there's purpose in this, and I'm committed to connecting with that purpose. Please reveal it to me, and I will take action with my human action steps to help myself connect with that. And because of that, I feel like those layers did start to reveal themselves fairly quickly.
Wow. So what I'm hearing from you is like two things. It's one, the belief of this is happening for me. I know that. I can't see it all now. I know hindsight's 2020, but I know it's happening for me. And two, setting out the intention and asking for the support, asking for the guidance, asking to be shown the answers. So there's the two pieces. What happens once you make that declaration?
So then some of those human action steps, like again, you'll intuit them, right? And so for me, there it was different things. It was getting quiet and listening and just surrendering to the pain. Like that's the biggest thing I learned is to lean into the pain and just I'm in this experience. I can't force myself out of it. I can't rush it. I just have to live it and be in it. And the other is when you get that intuition to reach out for that support. So, I had a wonderful CBT therapist and I would connect with her when I felt I needed to. And so just really,
Sorry, a CBT
oh, like a
therapist? What's that?
cognitive behavioral therapist. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I would talk with her whenever I just needed to link with things. And
I think that that's a really beautiful reminder for anybody who's in a dark season of their life is like we resist it, right? And people may have heard the term what you resist persists, but it's
Mhm.
really you're not acknowledging that it's happening for you and there might be some sort of a lesson or beauty or growth within it if we're constantly like I don't want to be here, this shouldn't be happening to me right now, what is going on? So you had this moment of almost surrendering into it and you're like okay, what's going on, let's just see what's going to happen here.
Yeah, again, surrender and trust. It was like, okay, I trust that if I'm having this experience, it's for a reason. Okay, let's move through this. And I think
Mhm.
in a lot of new age practices, that's part of the danger too, is there is that kind of illusion or expectation of, okay, if you're not healed or you have an experience like that, what are you doing wrong? What are you doing that deserved that or things like that? There is that kind of, like you were saying, a pressure on the self to have to fix it or understand it versus just trusting in God that this is happening because it's your will and I trust in that. I mean, so much of what can come up in New Age is around the center of self, right? Self healing, self love, self focus, self empowerment. And that's what that experience really started to shift for me was I'm tired of carrying the self. I'm tired of always holding space. And even though at the right then at that moment I didn't see that yet, that's where it was taking me, was out of that.
So you had to
Yeah.
surrender into something greater, into something bigger, because you're like, I can't keep holding this myself and working through it. I need to let go a little bit and get that
Yeah.
support, that external support. Okay. You said that you felt the presence of Jesus. Can you describe that moment in as much detail as you can?
Sure. So midway through my medication trials, right? In total, including a bridge medication, it took me 5 medications before I found the right one that worked for me, which isn't uncommon for epilepsy, and I'm deeply grateful that I found one because a lot of people don't. And I wanna point out too that my intuition came in that when you're experiencing such strong side effects and, you are kind of holistic in your nature, there's a lot of people that would go like no to medication or oh like I felt that judgment from people too like no you should be off medication, you shouldn't need it, but my intuition from day one said do this will help you, you need this. And even with all the side effects and how strong they were, I would take that over experiencing another seizure right, and the other risks like memory loss and things like that. So yeah, it just goes speaks back to that pressure that you were mentioning, but I always knew from day one, I'm like, "No, I this is right for me. This is an important step." And so, I was 5 medications, and midway through that year, I was just physically depleted, emotionally exhausted, and overwhelmed. And with my back pain and my full body aches, the only thing that would give me any temporary relief was a steaming hot shower. And so didn't want to see our water bill. I had a lot of showers. And one day I remember I was like, "Hey, I'm going to go sit in the shower." And I just at that time, like I felt broken. And I just sat in the shower and I cried. And I was just sitting there just crying and exhausted, like holding my knees up to my chest with my head in my knees and the hot water hitting my back. And I was just like, "I can't do this. Like, please just help me. Like, I can't keep feeling like this." Um, you know, and in that moment, sorry, it still makes me a bit emotional. Um,
It's okay.
and in that moment, all of a sudden, I feel this like overwhelming sense of peace and love. And I saw white light, and then I saw Jesus's face. And it felt like he was hugging me from behind, like I was being held by him. And and it was just like I felt his words, his energy like coming through and just saying like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I just sat there in that moment because I didn't want to leave it naturally. And I just sat and I did. I all of a sudden just felt this reassurance, this safety, this unconditional love. And it started to just come over me that like, okay, like a newfound strength rising up. And I just stayed in it. And then it just slowly started to fade. And then eventually I just got up and I was like a big exhale. And I was like, okay, I've got this. Like I've got this. I can keep going. And that was it. It was just beautiful. And I went, of course, and told my husband. And we had been talking for about like a year to 18 months before that. I had been drawn to like church and baptism a bit. Like I had been thinking about it on and off, like we both were, because, when you have a kid, you think like, do I want to baptize them? And so it was interesting because after that, I went to my husband. I was just like, I'm getting baptized. Like it's time. Like this needs to happen. And he was just like, well, of course, after that experience, you have to, right?
Oh, I love that he like didn't second guess you either. I mean, obviously he knew you were spiritual and into this world, but I just love that he held you and held space for you in that moment after you experienced that. That's so beautiful.
He is my rock. Like I'm so blessed that I married the right person, and we're very fortunate that we're always on the same page. Even if we're at different like points in our growth, we always are in agreement around what we want and what we're navigating, and everything we went through. The resilience played such a factor because we had a shared resilience with it, and that we consciously chose to lean into each other during that time versus a lot of experiences that could pull people apart, right? And
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it made our marriage stronger. Like we have such a strong marriage today because we've been through those things, and having, our daughter be like 3, 4 years old when this is happening, our faith, our resilience, all of that, our intuition, all of it played a key in us going, no, like these are our priorities, these are our values, and we're showing up no matter how tired we are, no matter what, because we are not going to miss out on this time with her. And I think that's something that we're the most proud of.
That's so beautiful. And I want to bring it back to the shower
Yeah.
moment. I can just assume that it was such a stark difference between the feeling of the physical pain and anguish and just like that feeling of being broken to then being held and being supported and that peace. Physically, did you feel the pain kind of wash away in that moment when you had that experience with Jesus?
Yes. Like it just ceased. Like as soon as he showed up and I had that feeling, I was just no longer like aware of pain or anything. I just felt his love.
Okay. And did he
Yeah.
have any other message for you, or it was just like, you're going to be okay, you're going to get through this, and then you just had this renewed sense or like this confidence or this knowing that you were going to make it?
Yeah. That was truly it. It was just this deep love, this feeling of safety and like it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And then it did. It just filled me with this strength, and this like a second wind came into me.
Mm-hmm. So then you have this knowing of, I want to be baptized. I think it's really cool that you decided to do that later on, because a lot of people, if they have had it when they were a kid, it might not mean something. It's just, oh, my parents did it. And then they almost reject it later. Like this was forced upon me. But this was like a conscious choice. And so what was the intention with getting baptized? What was the intention with that?
After having that experience, I just wanted to move closer to God. I wanted to honor that relationship and just deepen it. A lot of people, when they move from like New Age to Christianity, they disown their past. You see that a lot. There's like a rejection of their past. And I don't feel that way. I really don't. I know that everything I did was in the light and was with the intention of God. The only thing that I, regret, if you will, is that I didn't give God credit fully. I
Okay.
was saying like source or universe versus no, God is the creator of the universe, right? And, people sometimes in New Age circles will refer to Jesus as, you know, a spiritual teacher or the like ascended master. Whereas I'm
Yes.
like, it's important to recognize the Son of God. So those are things that shifted for me with shifting my spiritual center in that way. But I know that it was always God in my work and what I was doing. And the baptism and everything was just me going, honestly, I feel like I made it. Like, this is where I've been trying to go and I've arrived. Like, it's like I was telling you, there was this feeling of always holding everything. And for the first time, like literally in the shower, I was held, and from that moment on, I just wanted to stay in that. And I knew for me, it felt like a homecoming that I didn't know I needed. And I
Okay.
wanted to do whatever I could to strengthen that relationship.
Okay. That makes sense. It's beautiful. When you had that beautifully profound experience with Jesus, was that the first time you had ever had something like that powerful or that strong, like of a spiritually transformative experience in your life?
I'm glad you asked that actually, because that reminds me of another experience I did want to share with you. And so I was carrying like a lot of religious judgment, if you will. I mean, I struggled with religion. I did. And I think that's what kind of kept me from moving into this space with God. And I've asked myself, like, where did that come from? I think part of it may have come from just a lack of education, not understanding the whole story, not having that foundation. And I think another aspect was being empathic. I would feel other people's judgment or criticism of, I've got it right, you've got it wrong, and that sort of thing. Which, by the way, since I've joined that community, like I go to an Anglican church and I have not experienced any of that. Like, they're the most inclusive, warm, welcoming people. So, but back then I would feel that and I would get easily triggered by someone else's, religious stance. And so my husband and I, we were on our honeymoon and we went to Rome and we went to St. Peter's Basilica. And I'm standing there in the entryway and it's just ornate and grand and luxe, And so I'm immediately having this internal conflict of the simple, humble teachings of Christ versus like this ornate grandeur that is inside of there. And so I see that there's this prayer room on the right. And I say to my husband, okay, I'm just going to go in there and take a moment for myself. And I sat down. There's no one else in there. I sat down in the first pew and I just prayed. I was like, hey, wherever this is coming from, I don't want to carry judgment. I don't want to feel this or be triggered by this. So just please, like, heal me of this. Take this from me. And then immediately I feel drawn to look on the left and there's a crucifix, just a simple crucifix. And I hear, beauty is beauty, love is love. And that was it. It was in that moment, I was like, that's when anything that was projected onto me or that was blocking me from that or that I was carrying judgment towards just melted away.
What was your interpretation of that message? Because I'm getting my own interpretations that are flooding to me, and that's something that I love about messages that come in. They're so simple, they're so profound, but it
Mhm.
is open to our own human interpretation. So I'm curious, like when that came to you, what did those words mean? Beauty is beauty, love is love.
It meant that whether something is, simple or grand or seemingly strong or weak, like it's all the same. We're all interconnected, and that Christ's teachings show up everywhere and anywhere. And I don't need to worry about where someone else's relationship with God stands. If I'm rooted in my own, I can just be happy for them in their relationship and be secure enough in my own.
I like that because I guess where my mind went first when I heard you say those words, beauty and love is love. It's like there's beauty in all of it. It's like what you look for, you will see. And so what I'm hearing is like take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Like see the beauty, take the beauty, leave the judgments of whatever. Like just take what resonates with you.
Yes. And I mean, that was created out of love for him, right? It was that reverence that created all that. And And it's just that, like, that has come up for me multiple times. Like, I've carried that with me ever since. And if ever I find my ego coming in or I'm starting to judge, I just immediately hear that again. And it's like, yep, it's all love. It's all fine. Like, there's no defending this, or I've never believed in extremes, but it just brings it back to that neutral place of unity and love.
Mm. You have on your website the term, and I think it's so cool. I've never heard it before, but Christian mysticism. So, and I,
Yeah.
I think that this really goes back to what you said about like you not rejecting your past. So, do you feel like you still have like new age beliefs and now it's just kind of like combining them where you have this like more holistic approach or?
It was honestly a genuine slow fade out of it. So no, I don't feel like I'm holding both at the same time. So here, Christian mysticism is a stream of Christianity that really focuses on relationship. So a personal, intimate relationship with God. And there's still, of course, that level of like prayer and devotion that you're called to, but it really respects the mystery, which is why I feel like it just resonates with me so deeply because I've always just found familiarity in the mystery. I'm not someone that needs to figure something out. I don't like when people argue about, facts and theology and all that. I know it's important, but it's just not in my heart, right? I'm someone who Christian mysticism really holds like the mystery and honoring that, but also with a depth and a maturity that I feel like was lacking for me previously. And that's where I say like, oh, I understand now what people mean when they say like to rest in him, because I feel like after all these years, I was finally getting to rest. I was finally being held instead of doing the holding. And that was such a massive shift for me. I could feel it. And that's what Christian mysticism to me, when I just went, that embodies what I feel I am
Mhm.
living and experiencing. I didn't reject my past, but I will say, just very naturally, after I got baptized and moved forward in that relationship, some things that I used to enjoy that were connected to that just completely lost their resonance for me.
Oh, okay.
Card decks, sound bowls, crystals, certain things that I would enjoy just pulling a card and from a space of letting God speak through the card. But one by one, they just fell to the wayside. And I just went, I don't need it or I don't want it. So it has been a big shift in terms of not, you know, practicing the same way, doing the tools. Even with my business, like it was so big because it was like a slow death, to be honest. My work, it's always been important for me to feel passionate about it and to have creativity be at the forefront of it. And so, like every 3 years, I would want to train in something or learn a new skill and then incorporate that modality, which is where all those evolutions came from. But the last couple of years, like with this shift, since that moment, I couldn't get back to it. I couldn't connect with that passion. No matter what, I think, oh, maybe I'll take this. No. And it was just a slow, progressive fade, and I started to feel like I couldn't do my work anymore because it wasn't feeling authentic. I was finding myself like holding back on the language that now mattered the most to me, like being able to openly say God, Jesus. And I was neutralizing my language in order for the client's comfort or to fit the framework that I'd built for the last 15 years, right? And so at some point I went, yeah, I can't do it. And I just like closed my calendar. And that's when I sat with God and I just said, okay, like I get it. It's the death of that cycle of my business. And I'm okay with that. I have full trust wherever I'm meant to go, you'll take me. That being said, it's like I still felt like my business was alive. Do you know what I mean? Because 15 years it had been this beautiful energy that had sustained me and helped others. And so I just said, what do you want? Like, where do you want to take me? Show me whatever you want me to do. Use me to create good for others. And then that's where my new framework just started coming through. It just flowed. And all the offerings I have now were from that space. And creating them and putting them in motion felt different too. Like it just
Mm.
felt like an act of devotion, something I needed to do personally. And I was like, whatever comes of this, even if it's nothing, I'm fine with that. Like I just needed to have the outside reflect my inside.
And so when you said that, you experienced that wilderness of your life from 2015 to 2025, did going through this next spiritual transformation and connecting with Jesus and connecting with God, did it feel like it pulled you out of that?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, truly. I mean, it's not like, oh, you have this encounter or you get baptized and all of a sudden life is peachy keen and everything's easy, right? No, Jesus teaches us that, right? Life is not easy. We're going to have struggles. The right path is often not the easy one. And so there's still struggles. Like we moved and by the way, that was interesting too, because we ended up moving somewhere was the first place we've moved to that we didn't choose. It wasn't like, oh, we're excited to make this move. It was a move that felt like it was out of necessity, but I trusted our intuition, which was, divinely guided. And I think we're still integrating a part of that, to be honest. Like there was a lot of grief around. We had envisioned being here and what that was going to look like. And then God saying, well, no, actually, that's not what's on your plan. And so even that, just that act of trust and as a family grieving that and coming into acceptance of why we're here. But the longer we're here, the more it makes sense. And the more I can see God's grace at work because it's like, okay, your health has improved. You have a better neurologist. You have this, you have that. But even then there was still challenges. Like my daughter started kindergarten and we had a very unfortunate kindergarten experience. She was at a school that was completely disorganized, lacked structure, lacked warmth and things. And so, we after then moving I ended up pulling her out of school 3 months before the year was over and homeschooling her. But then again, like you see that hidden grace at work that you can't always see until you're on the other side of it. And we ended up putting her in a Catholic school, but we didn't even know about, and it wasn't something we would have ever thought we would have sought out. But she's there, and like this school is everything we could have wanted and more. And she's so happy. Like we saw our daughter's light dim, and then we saw her get it back. And like, okay, so if she hadn't gone through that and we hadn't gone through that, she never would have gotten here. So we get it,
Right. It sounds like, as somebody who's very versed in the new age spiritual community, that you a little bit went from like manifesting, maybe creating your reality, doing it yourself, it happening through you, to like surrendering, letting God's will be done, letting it happen through you, and trusting wherever you're guided. It feels like a little bit less of like creation versus letting things happen through you and surrendering. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, that's accurate. I mean, I think what stopped was the trying, like trying to, create this or live that and just moving into a space where there's no striving for anything, and it's just being in that surrender where you're in the relationship and enjoying it. I won't get into the details, but, there was family things too. And I had to learn that, forgiveness and reconciliation don't have to come together, and I had to be okay with that. But then I saw, you would think at the time, like, well, how could this be divinely guided, right? But then you give it some time, you honor the journey, you surrender and trust in the process, and you see, oh, I see why he's taking me there. Like, this has improved, my health has improved, all these things. And so being an empath and being someone who, whether I wanted to be or not, has always been highly attuned to the emotions of others. It took me a long time to develop assertiveness and allow myself to be in that space of saying no, honoring myself. And that was part of that health challenge of what it gave me. It taught me that I needed boundaries around my empathy. And it helped me protect my light more fiercely, which was something that was always really difficult for me to do.
that makes a lot of sense, because it's like you literally do not have the bandwidth. You're like, I'm in
Yeah.
survival mode. It's me, my husband, my daughter. Like, that's it. My business that's hanging on by a thread. Like, I don't have capacity. So you almost at a necessity, it sounds like, needed to put up those boundaries for things that were like maybe sucking your energy or just like not serving you anymore.
Yeah. I think that you come to a point in your spiritual maturity where you're so deeply aware of what is your responsibility to carry and what isn't. And you have to move forward and let go of what isn't yours to carry. And knowing that sometimes it's right for you to do so, right? Especially if you are in environments that are dimming or draining your light.
Can you give me an example of what you realized wasn't yours to carry anymore? And you don't have to say specific names or anything like that, but I'm just curious for the
Yeah,
listeners so that we can learn from what you've gone through.
sure. I think just realizing that you can't spend your life propping up other people's journeys. right? If it's like, imagine you have a tower and it's destined to crumble. What good are you doing? Spending your life trying to hold up the tower when it's going to crumble regardless. So you're only really hurting yourself, and you're preventing other people from having the experiences that, God is willing them to have for growth or their healing.
Hmm. Right. So you felt like you were kind of protecting people in your life from having a rock bottom or having something go wrong in their life, and you didn't want them to feel that way, or you didn't want them to go through it. So you're trying and you're giving, 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 and all the while getting depleted. Is that correct?
Yes. And
Okay.
as people, like a lot of healers will know, you can only heal someone who truly wants to be healed. You can only take people as far as they're willing and prepared to go. And being a healer and highly sensitive, that was something that I I did a lot, was maybe wanting more for people than they wanted for themselves.
Right. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Allison, do you feel like the epilepsy happened for you to strengthen your connection and really develop that connection between you, Jesus, God, and transform you spiritually?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. It is at the time one of those things where the human emotions want to attack and go, well, why is this happening? But yes, I now know that that's what it was. It was like my gateway to a more intimate personal relationship with God. And I've always felt that way about Jesus, that when I connect with Jesus or have pictured him at any time, it's like I feel him saying, like, come walk beside me. Walk along with me, come sit beside me, talk to me. It has always felt more intimate and like a friendship than it has like get down on your knees and worship. So, and trust me, we can worship, but I'm just saying there's different ways to
Hmm.
do it. And that's the one that has resonated most with me.
Hmm. Okay. Has there
Yeah.
been any other positive outcomes or things that have happened because of that challenge, because of the epilepsy and that health scare?
Yeah. I mean, I am more connected to my body than I've ever been. Like, I have such a deep respect for it. I fully understand the value of health and what it means to not have it. And it did bring forward even more compassion and understanding in regards to my clients. And it has kept me, like, I've always had a strong faith, but it strengthened it. It took my faith to a much deeper, meaningful place for me. And for that, I'm grateful for it. And there's no part of me that feels like I need to be free of this or anything like that. I'm more thankful for the experience now, and it keeps me disciplined. It does. I mean, I have to go to bed at a certain time. I have to make sure I take my pills at a certain time. I have to, if I don't exercise or take care of my nervous system, I will feel that. So, yes, it has led to more discipline, but it has, like I say, in an ironic way, actually, I feel like it's increased my health a bit. So,
Right. You're just like more conscious of it, of what you put in and what you're feeding yourself. And I like that, the discipline. That's really interesting. If someone is in that wilderness phase of life right now, confused, searching, maybe even they're in a state of suffering, what would you say to them?
yeah. I would say know that there is purpose in this. And even in pain, there is purpose, and that this is happening for you, not to you. And trust in the experience, trust in the process, and have faith and talk to God. Pray, pray, pray. Like, pray and stay in that space of surrender and conversation with God. You will get through this. You might not know when it's going to end, but you will come out the other side of it. You will be stronger for it, wiser for it, and glad you went through it.
That's so nice. So, I want to talk about your current work. We touched on it a little bit, but it has transformed. So, talk to us about the programs. Are you still doing healing sessions, or are you doing more coursework?
Right now, it's more coursework. I have some PDF healing booklets that people can download. I have an online course. And I think particularly it is really suited to people who are either newly Christian or who are on the fence, right? If you're just like, I'm curious about God, I'm curious about Jesus, and I would like to explore that more, I think it's a really beautiful, gentle space to enter into that. And then I also have my online course is rooted in 4 stages. And this is what came through when I was saying work through me and looking back on what's my journey been. And so there's awakening, enchantment, disenchantment, and staying enchanted, and helping you to recognize what season you're in and understand what could help you move through that season, and that the seasons are temporary. They're not linear, as you've said. So people might find that they circle back to a season, that a couple of seasons are overlapping, but each stage is vital and important and necessary. And if you can just recognize, okay, I'm in this stage and the importance of it, and know what tools can get you through that, how much closer and more with more grace you can reach, that
Mm,
relationship. It's a
mhm.
self-paced course. And
Yes.
then from my online course, I have just a short course that is the same stages but applied to motherhood, so that you can recognize how those stages influence you as a mother. And in the fall, in either the fall or the winter, I'm looking at opening up a spiritual mentorship. So not healing sessions, but more you kind of have to take the online course as a prerequisite, and then so that you have the framework, so we're not wasting unnecessary time on that. And then it's like, okay, let's figure out what season you're in, how we can support you navigating through this, and
Mhm,
just walk with you through your
mhm.
journey.
Okay. So, Allison, I'm curious, like with your psychicism and with the healing work and things like that, like, do you reject that? How do you make sense of that? Like, do you still have those abilities and those gifts? Is that ever something that you'd want to include again? Or, like, I've heard people say false prophet, right? Do you reject what you offered in the past? Or what was that, do you think?
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't reject what I've offered in the past. I really firmly believe that God was present with me in any work that I was doing. But God meets you where you are. And at each stage, that's where I was. And that's how I was doing the work with the tools and the language I had at that time. I just feel like this has been a maturation of everything and an integration of it. It's like before it was me saying, I'll be a facilitator for you. I'll be this conduit for your love and your messages. When really, from the place I'm at now, I'm like, you don't need me. You need Jesus. So there's that part of me that's like, just go directly to God, just go
Mm,
directly there, because you will get there faster, and it'll be a more important journey, and you'll be developing your self so much faster and with so much more grace than you could if you're like relying. That being said, God gives us strengths and skills to use. Otherwise, why would we have them? So to reject those or shut those down, no, I don't agree with that either. So I think it's about just applying them from where you're at with a pure heart, good intentions. And for the people that are utilizing any kind of service like that, again, it's discernment. You're going to
mhm,
know if you're giving your power away versus you're like, I could use a little bit of guidance or confirmation right now or something like that. It's just about how you're discerning and trusting in who you're working with. But it's interesting you say that, because just the other day, my husband said to me, he's like, I love where we're at and the path we're on. But he's always been such a champion for like feminism and stuff. And he's like, I also want you to know that it matters to me that you honor your intuition, right? And that you don't like I've always shied away from the term gifts, but he calls it that. And he's like, I want you to stay connected to those, and not feel like you have to quiet those in any way. And I'm like, no, of course, that's who I am. If I was born this way, deeply empathic with, a strong sense of intuition, how can that be wrong? And how can using that to support others be wrong? Right. So I'm always going to stay connected to that part. I mean, I do it daily, of course, for my family. Like one of the greatest gifts of being an empath, the biggest blessing is being able to be so highly attuned to my daughter and her feelings and needs. I'm so grateful for that. And then she is highly sensitive too. So, I mean, that we have such a unique and special bond because of that. But yeah, I will always honor it. I don't reject anything I've done. It's all been done in light and love.
I love that. Okay, that's really cool. That makes me happy. That makes my heart happy. I also, just because you've had such a profound impact on me, and when you say, I feel like my business has this energy, I think it's the energy that we're all connected to you, right? And all the positivity and the dominoes of like inspiring people that maybe you haven't even met because of the messages or the healing that you gave, or teaching somebody else about their gifts and how to harness that. Well, you don't even know who they've touched and who they've connected. So you've had,
Yeah.
such an impact on so many people. And I even
Thank
did
you.
when we had my sister on and she talked about how your Meet Your Spirit Guide meditation kicked off her full-blown spiritual awakening, we had people reach out and they're like, who's the girl? Like, what's her website?
Oh.
And then, and you've taken those off now. And so I wondered, like, is it just because it doesn't feel like it resonates anymore? Because, like, I mean, you've already recorded them. You could easily have them up for people to use if they felt called to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that. I just feel like I'm in this different space, and it's like before I would see spirit beings as like distinct, right? Because that's where I was and how I was seeing it at the time. But now I'm like, well, it was always God, and I see it as that. And so for me, I feel like I would rather, which maybe I'll do at some point, but create a meditation of just connect with God directly,
Girl,
and that's
you need to do that. I want to do that meditation. That is so
it's on.
Because what I'm hearing from you a lot is like oneness. It's like, okay,
Yes.
almost the spirit guide is just like you, like me, this illusion of separation. But you're just like, we can just go to the direct source and connect with that instead of the other individuation, like, or the illusion of separation that it is. It's like you can just go directly to source and you don't need me. I always resonate when people really encourage you to have your own relationship and to develop that and to go inward. Then, like, you have to listen to me and you have to do my meditation and you have to fly here so that I can bless you. Like, that just doesn't really vibe with me. But you're like, hey, you actually don't have to spend any money. You can just have your own relationship. It's like
100%. I mean, there's a big difference between religion and faith, right? And I've always been rooted in faith, like materialism or reach or success or anything like that stuff has never mattered to me. And it's like you said before, my entire business was built on word of mouth. I've never like done any real marketing or anything like that. And I think it's that not being attached to the outcome and the intention being sincere of why my business has, lasted this long. And that's never going to change. I'm always going to come from a sincere drive of just wanting to help people. Yeah. And wherever you're at, like if whatever tools someone's using, wherever they're at right now, be there. That's where you need to be. I wouldn't have gotten here and to this relationship with Jesus that I'm enjoying if I didn't have the journey that took me there, So that's why I feel very passionate about people not just completely disregarding it or disowning it and saying, oh, it's all wrong. Like, I don't feel that way. I honor my journey and I'm grateful because look where it's taken me,
On that note, I think that's a perfect place for us to end. Allyson, thank you so much. This has been so fun. Like I said, I was so curious to hear your story and your lore and where you are now. And I'm so happy to connect with you. Thank you for all that you do and all the light that you're shining into this world.
Thank you for having me. I wish you all the best with your podcast. It's going to be great. And it's a pleasure to connect with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Meant to Be Heard. If this episode resonated, please share it with a friend, rate the podcast, and hit follow so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at You're Meant to Be Here with a 2. New episodes drop Mondays. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you're meant to be here.